Please welcome this evening's guest moderator from Galax Media Group, George Alexander, and tonight's guests, Jake Goldberger and Cuba Gooding Jr.
Wasn't as cold out here as I thought it might be. I was wrong.
So welcome everyone to this great presentation with Mr. Cuba Gooding Jr. and this great director, Jake Goldberger. And if you haven't seen the film, it's fantastic. I know you just saw a trailer. I'm really moved by this film. And I hope you do go out to see it on January 17th. So first, Jake, I wanted to talk about what inspired you to do this film. When did you learn about this gentleman in this film, Eugene Brown?
Well, you know, I had first heard the story of Eugene literally 10 years ago. And that's how long it took for us to get the movie made. So when I first came on, my producer had seen a segment on Eugene on Dateline or a show of that nature, and he ran it by me, and I said I'd love to do it. At that point, you know, neither he and I had made a movie. We were just really inspired by the story. So I wrote the script based on another draft by a couple of other guys, David Scott and Dan Wetzel, and we started grinding away, and it took a decade.
Now, the thing about this film, because it is inspired by a true story, how obligated did you feel to stick to the truth, or what liberties did you take to make it creative and to keep it, you know, entertainment?
You know, I definitely took a few liberties, because at the end of the day, if a true story, you know, it has to be interesting, and the narrative has to work, and the themes have to work. So there are certain things here and there that I definitely fudged, but well, I did. But at the end of the day, if you show anybody's life, you know, you want to make somebody's life interesting, which Eugene's already is, but you really want to make all the themes come to life. You've got to do certain things. So, and Eugene's seen the movie and he loves it and is very, you know, he's very proud of it.
Excellent. Now, Cuba, you played a number of real life, real people in your career. You've done Men of Honor. And Red Tails not too long ago, and you also did radio. What attracts you to these types of characters, and how do you prepare, and what attracted you to Eugene?
Well, I think if there is a theme to the roles that I get attracted to, these real-life characters, I mean, even to some degree Boys in the Hood, it would probably be that there is something about that family nucleus that is explored in these tales of these men, this father-son relationship, you know. If you think about even the Butler, he told the civil rights story through the eyes of this Butler's family and the relationship that he had with his son. I think those stories were stories that when I was going to school, I didn't have, that there were great black men at the head of family households doing great things for our nation and taking care of their families. You know, I was a breakdancer. I was, you know, running in the street, and all my buddies had mothers, but nobody had fathers. So now, as I grow older and I hear these real-life stories of these men doing these amazing things, I want people to know about it. I want to spread the word that, you know, Barack Obama's presidency was an eventuality and not something that just happened as a fluke. You know, there are great Americans, not just white Americans, but Asian and black and Hispanic Americans that have done great things for this country. And so anyway, my long-winded way of saying, whenever I get a script that tells another page of our story, I jump all over it. Thanks, Mom. My mother started this.
Right, and the good
She's
thing
not
about
here, but if she was, she would be clapping.
That's one thing I did find very attractive about the movie, that you have these really human characters, these black men who have strong relationships with each other, who are very supportive of one another, who are real people, three-dimensional characters. Jake, how did you get to that humanity in these characters? What was your process?
Well, it started off as a musical.
That's right, of course. You should see the other cut. You know, for me, the most important thing, as you were asking before, are there certain things that you have to connect the dots yourself? It was so important that the story of this man's redemption was clear throughout the movie. So as much of as chess is an important part of the story, this man's redemption was incredibly important to me also, and that was really my blueprint for building the story.
Why don't we go to a clip, because in the movie you see Cuba's character, Eugene, who's really trying to find his way back into society, which unfortunately a lot of black men are. We have the high incarceration rate with black men in our country, and Eugene's character really represents this type of character. Why don't we go to the clip with Eugene? It's called Job Application, this scene. So Cuba, what is your process? What was your process for preparing for Eugene? Did you meet the real Eugene, and what was that process like?
Well, now that's a very interesting question, because I had filmed The Butler in, where are we, 2013? So 2013, last year's 2013, the summer of last year, and it went over, so it pushed my next movie that I shot in New Haven by 2 weeks, so I had to go directly from one set to the other set. And that film is still in pre-production, but my agent called me on that set and said, now, mind you, this is 2 weeks prior to Thanksgiving. He says, so we just got an offer for you to do this story of this guy, real life guy. We know you like these stories. I said, no, I'm done. I can't. I've been on the road. Prior to that, I was in Australia. I was like, no, I can't. My agent says, you just read the script and then we'll pass on it, because there's no money here. There was nothing. So I said, okay. So I read the script and said the F word out loud on page 4.
Fine.
Because I was, fine, I'm in. Yes, that's it. But I knew after reading it, it was God's will that I be involved in it. So I said, is there a way for them to push this? You don't know any of this, but or you might know. Is there a way to push it till after Christmas? And they were like, no, the way they're funded, they have to go now. And so I went, I wrapped Carry Me Home, which is the movie I did in New Haven, got on a plane on let's say a Monday, landed at noon, went directly to the wardrobe fitting, went to my own bed that I hadn't slept in but 4 weeks out of that year, and then woke up the next day and was on his set. So no, I didn't meet the real Eugene Brown until the last day of filming. Yeah. And he was there, and he was very excited about, telling his story, but very shy and introvert. And it was interesting because I was glad that I didn't meet him before, because maybe he was intimidated by the scene that we were shooting or whatever, but, and I don't want to cut you off, but I play him in command of his surrounding in the movie when you see the movie. I mean, he's dealing with these kids who carry guns, these kids who deal drugs and aren't afraid of authority figures. So I had to play him with authority above and beyond that aspect. And it was interesting because the one common theme that I kept saying to myself is the nobility of what he accomplished, even though he came from such meager beginnings and actually went down a wrong road. He still had to have a nobility of spirit. And I think I saw that in him. And I know now I saw it in him. But the day I met him, I was very nervous about that disrupting this character that I had built based on what I thought would be his personality.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's a real choice. Cuba and I had a long conversation a couple nights before we started shooting on the phone, because we didn't actually meet. When we met in person, which is amazing. We were shooting. I started to shoot with some of the kids in the classroom, and Cuba comes on set. We shake hands. He gives me a pat in the back, walks in front of the cameras, go, all right, let's start. But I think meeting Eugene could really disrupt the process up front. I think we have to make a decision and make choices about how we're going to play, or how you're going to play the character. And you don't want something...
How we are going to play the character.
There you go.
Because as a director, I say this a lot of times. It's like, you're the actor, you have an interpretation, and you have things. And then the director comes in, and he has his interpretation and influences your performance. And you say, yeah, it's your performance. Your performance, you surrender to him. And then he in the editing room decides what the date is. So it's our performance.
True. There you go. Yeah. And after the first week of shooting, you and I spent about 15 minutes talking about how we felt the week when how we felt the character was developing, and we were completely on the same. We were on the same page right off the bat, which is a real a really, really good thing in a situation like this when we shot the entire movie in 15 days.
Wow,
So you can only imagine if he and I are not on the same page, we're in trouble.
Yeah, or the DPs.
Or the DP, yeah. My DP was amazing.
Mark is amazing.
Yeah, Mark Schwartzbard, who was my DP. The movie looks amazing. You know, I mean, you guys have to remember, usually on 15 days, if you're talking about 15 days, you're talking about a horror movie that takes place in one room. You know, I mean, really. And so for us, we have you know, tons of locations and schools and chess tournaments and the whole thing. So everybody really needed to be on the same page. Most importantly, Cuba and Mark, my DP.
Oh, excellent. Why don't we go to another clip and then we talk about how you guys did collaborate. And after you see this clip, we're going to go to the classroom when Eugene confronts his students on chess for the first time. One of the first times. Now, with a scene like that, Cuba, obviously you had an idea what that scene how it would run in your mind when you read the script. How did you and Jake, you said you were pretty much on the same page from day one. Was there anything where you perhaps had a different idea within that particular scene, or?
For me, to be honest with you, when the second I met Cuba and we got into the room, there was really very little actual direction from me to him because he was playing the part exactly how I had envisioned it. And we would talk a little bit, but at the end of the day, we would just look at each other and you would know that I got what I wanted. And
No, not at the end of the day. Throughout the course of the day.
Throughout the course of the day,
Because
exactly.
the other thing, too, is when you're doing a movie for 15 days with no money, with a lot of first-time actors, you'll see this movie, when you all see this movie, know that a lot of these, and you can tell them the specifics of it, but a lot of these kids were in some kind of acting laboratory or something, and they had never been on a set before. And they had been filming, you know, it's hard enough to act in front of a camera with a room full of people staring at you, especially focus DPs looking you in your face. So to block that out is one thing. But once you create this world for yourself and you get into the mindset and you're like, all right, I am this student in this high school. Oh, shit, that's Cuba Gooding Jr. There's that thing because I showed up. How many days into filming? I mean, I wasn't there on the first day. I was there the second week, I think.
No, yeah, you would come.
Second day
Yeah,
or something,
second
I
day.
can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
But I just remember that when I came in that room and I looked around at these kids doing this scene, I was in my mind, and so were they. They were in the characters' mindsets. And when we broke for lunch, I said, "How you doing today?" And a couple of the kids looked at me like, why is he talking to me? Like, they were literally living these characters. And it brought tears to my eyes. I didn't tell you this because it reminded me of when Morris Chestnut and Ice Cube and I dealt with Lawrence Fishburne on Boys in the Hood. We were the same way. We were like, we know you did Apocalypse Now. We're going to show you that we can be the character 24/7 like you lived it. And that's exactly what these kids did. And it was just magical. It was magical to watch. And it was that thing where, you know, if a take was not going the right way, I wouldn't wait for cut. I'd be like, you know, you want everybody. And it was also, too, it wasn't just the main characters like that. It was all the extras and people who were working for like $25. Everybody was in character. It was wonderful.
And Jake, how did you prepare to work with first-time actors? I mean, I could tell that some of these very first faces. What was your process for doing so?
You know, after Mary Vernew had given me a lot of options, I saw a lot of kids for each role, and I chose the ones that I thought would mesh best together and also were right for the role. They and I went and we rehearsed. We took a couple days and we rehearsed every single scene. And then once, you know, I told them at that point that Cuba was going to be doing the movie. Obviously, at that point, they're all, you know, they were not expecting it. So when it came down to their actual performances, in the time we had, we tried to be as prepared as possible. Cuba was very, very good with them, and that's so important because if he felt something was off, or he and I would talk about something being off, he'd say, "Give me a minute," and he would talk to them. And it's as simple as that. It really, really brings them a lot of ease. And we were shooting with 2 cameras the whole time. So we'd just be rolling around the room, shooting, and we'd shoot the scene, you know, 5 or 6 times, and
Now, don't just gloss over that, because that was one thing that impressed the hell out of me. Is the DP Mark? What's Mark's last
Mark
name?
Schwartzbart and Niles Roth, who was the second camera.
And the Niles Roth. These two men shot this movie like it was a documentary, and actually his experiences, Mark's experience, he did a lot of the Sacha Baron Cohen movies, where what was the thing that he would say? He says we would set up a scene, not so much as to get the truth of the scene. When he's working with Sacha, it was to find your exit plan when people realized that this was something they were filming. So it got us, recognizing the truth of the moment so fast, because that's what they were doing. And when they were shooting around the room, like, I'll never forget, we were doing the scene. There was a scene where I visit my son in prison. I hope I don't give the movie away, but I have a son in prison. And I'm dealing with this emotion, and he yelled, "Cut." But it took me a minute to get out of the emotion. So as I look up, I noticed Mark getting listening to shit you're saying, because he's filming and filming and filming. And even as I stood up and I'm finally out of the moment, he's still filming and filming and filming. And then finally turn it off. I was like, all right, turn it off.
Yeah.
Because to him, it was like he wasn't waiting,
Yeah.
because maybe you weren't seeing what he saw through the camera lens. And I was just so blown away by that.
Yeah, Mark is just an amazing DP. I mean, I would work with him again in a second. I hope I get the opportunity to. He's great.
Great. And Jake, who are some of your influences? What movies influenced you? When I saw this movie, I thought of the urban movies of the 90s. I thought of blaxploitation movies, or movies that were in that era, like Coolie High or things like that. And then also the music is very, very soulful. I mean, it's hardcore 70s soul going through it. So it made me think of that era as well. Tell me some of your influences.
Mark and I watched a million of the standard chess movies, not only chess movies, but ways that we were going to shoot a classroom. So obviously, in terms of shooting a classroom, and they're working on way bigger budgets, but a movie like Lean on Me, obviously Fresh, if any of you have seen that, which is really awesome, which was done at a small budget, not as small as ours, but super small budget. Also, this is a really weird influence that. In terms of the music, in terms of some of how I wanted the movie to feel, especially by the end, is believe it or not, the movie Rudy, which was a hidden influence for all this. But yeah, we watched. For me, the most important thing was to understand how we were going to shoot A, the chessboard and chess pieces moving around, and B, shoot classrooms, because those are really difficult to shoot. You have to cover a lot of bases.
You also have a lot of themes running through the movie, big themes. But what's the big takeaway for the audience? What do you want us to feel and come away with? Both of you, actually.
Oh, Cuba, you always.
I keep saying it, that whole family nucleus, the father, son. I mean, it breaks my heart every time I see the news and I see these, I don't care what color you are, but carrying a gun and shooting and robbing people, what male figures did these young men have in their life to say it's okay to take another man's life, Where's the accountability in that? And I think that here you have a man in Eugene Brown who went to prison and got out and recognized that he had an opportunity to correct the paths of kids going down the same road he went down. And I think it's movies like this that can be told in such a refreshing way. There's a reason why we're talking about the DP. I mean, this is a story that's told through time of a man finding redemption through the youth, right? Like you said, Lean on Me and Remember the Titans and whatnot. But when you see this movie, I feel it feels fresh. It feels fresh because of the way that the perspective is shown through it, the direction and the cinematography, and I just hope people recognize that, and I hope kids recognize that. Listen, there was some frustration when I did The Butler. Lee Daniels and I went on that press tour with all the other actors in it, and there were some young people who didn't understand the term sit-ins and associate it with the civil rights movement. And that comes, I believe, from a lack of education of where we've come from as a nation, And a lot of times, the saddest day I ever had was when I was shooting in a prison, and this brother walked up to me, and he said, "Cuba, I ain't shit. I ain't never gonna be shit, and that's why I'm here, because I had nothing to lose, because I am a piece of shit." And if kids think they don't have the capacity to be greater, then they will act desperately. So why not show these kids that you can be the president of the, of this free country. You can be that. There's no reason why you can't.
Excellent. So we're going to open it up now for questions from the audience.
Hi. First, Cuba, you're funny and wonderful, so thank you. Yeah. By the way, okay, I love John Landis.
What I said was funny? What I just said was funny
No. You're
What I
always
just
nice.
said-
You're always nice and funny. Sorry. No, your entrance was so
I'm kidding.
hilarious. No, your entrance was amazing.
Sorry.
But you, Jake,
He's like,
you,
shut up, kid.
Yeah, okay,
Shut up. I'm
okay,
still
okay.
asking you the question.
And Jake, you're great too. But okay, I love John Landis movies, and then coming to America.
Yeah.
You are in the movie.
That's right.
Then you are a customer at the barber shop.
My
Then
first role.
Eddie cut your hair.
That's right.
Then, by the way, I live in the same place. Eddie and Arsenio worked at McDowell restaurant, Queens. Yeah, but how did you get the role? Then question for this movie. Do you like play chess? Are you a chess fan? Then sorry. Then did you have a time for prepare for this role? Because you had only short time. Then Jake, how did you direct Oscar winner? And then one more. Sorry, this is a funny question. What's your favorite movie? Thank you.
So the first
And
question.
good night. Thank you for coming.
So the first question was.
I got it. Okay, first
Yes.
question is, I auditioned. They had a big cattle call. I went into the casting director, brought me into John Landis. I won that role. Had a big scene, cut the movie out. Now I look like an extra. Second question was about this movie, Chess. I didn't play. I still don't play. I hate to say it. I do. I'm writing now, as Jake knows, and my goal is to do what he does. I respect directors so much, so that's what I want to be. And the third, I answered already. Remember, I went from one set to the other, and I met the guy the last day. You got to pay attention. All right, your turn. You apologize already. Go, Jake.
We're going to take another one, sir. I'm sorry.
This is for Cuba Gooding. I am honored to meet you. You are my favorite actor of all time. Boys in the Hood is my favorite movie, and I really respect your work.
Thank you.
And
Wait till you see Spencer and Mason Gooding.
I'm definitely saying that. I see all your movies.
No, I'm saying my sons, because they one day will.
Never mind. Go. It was a horrible statement. I'm like you now. See what you started? Go.
I wanted to know what inspired you to be an actor.
Is it? Well, I can get two birds in one stone. I was inspired, believe it or not. My father's a singer, lead singer of group The Main Ingredient. And thank you. Oh, he'll love that. Is this being recorded? Just cut this segment out and we'll send it to him. No. And so being in the entertainment field, you get the privilege of seeing movies before they open. And so when they did the first Superman with Christopher Reeves, they invited just a select group of, VIPs and their children to see that movie. And I couldn't understand how that man flew. And I said, that's what I want to do for a living. And that was it's true, that was my inspiration to be an actor. And now I'm inspired by directors, because I want to do more than just act. I want to create that story.
Out of all characters that you've played in all your movies, which ones do you relate to the most?
Well, I think I relate to the ones that are broken and they fix whatever problem they've been broken by. Guys with adversity in front of them, like Carl Bashir in Men of Honor. These are men that aren't supposed to win, but they do. I think that's it. I think that, there's an emotional core to my artistry that I try to have evident even in my comedies, be it a physicality or an emotion. So I try to give them humanity. Even in American Gangster, I was playing Nicky Barnes, but Nicky was doing what he felt he was born to do. So there was that passion in that. And I think that's where it emanated my performance from that.
This question's for Cuba. For Home on the Range, how do you develop the voice for Buck the horse? And for Snow Dogs and Radio, what was your experience like, and what was it like working with James Coburn and Ed Harris?
Well,
Well, first you started with the goofy question, and then you want to make me cry when you talk about James Coburn.
And Buck the Horse to James Coburn.
Yeah, he was, that was like one of his last films before he passed away, and it was that thing where you just, I'm blessed to do what I do. One, I love what I do, but to work with actors that have influenced a generation of people is the thing that blows me away every day when I see these men, Bobby De Niro, Jack Nicholson, James Coburn, men that have an impact on cinema history, and to share the screen with them is just, it's an honor. As Snow Dogs, can you say the F word? I won't, but it was cold with a capital F. We shot that in Banff Springs, Alberta, 37 below zero, the entire shoot. You can keep it. But I like the dogs. All right, nice talking to you.
Hello, this question is directed towards Cuba. What was the most difficult part about playing Eugene?
I think with any real life character that you're doing something that doesn't disrespect his intent and his vision. And so even though it was difficult for me, it was something that I really wanted to make sure I connected with the director because he lived this guy's life. He knew his life. So I had to just let that insecurity go and know that Jake was sure that where I was going was the right direction. So, yeah, that would be the hardest in any real life story, because you don't want, I hate to say it, but Master Chief Carl Bashir has passed away. There's a slew of Tuskegee Airmen that have passed away. And all of these men had to see the work that we were doing in their name and approve it. So you hope that they're resting in peace.
This question is directed at both of you. Jake, when you wrote the script, did you envision the true dramatic antagonist as being the young man who sold drugs and was resistant to the chess concept of the main character? And Cuba, when you walked on the set, determined to act the role of the primary character in the image that you had constructed in your mind because you had never met the real man, did you see the antagonist more as his past? And this unfortunate tradition in our nation of the inordinate incarceration of African American men, which has civil rights connotations, constitutional and social unfairness. Was it the image that was the antagonist to be defeated, as opposed to the traditional dramatic antagonist of a character?
All right, that's a tough... I will say this, in terms of the antagonist in the movie, there's a couple. And it was important to me to not go down the road of things being incredibly standard. We were trying to tell a 3-act story, but I did not want this to be to just be one of these movies that just lies there. It was important that there were a couple different obstacles. And remember, in every movie, the greater the obstacles are at the end of the day, the better you feel at the end of the movie if your main character is able to overcome them. I'm not going to say whether he is or he isn't, but he is. So that's, yeah.
The institution and the incarceration of our youth should only be implied as a last resort. And I believe that. And I think it's an unfortunate thing that we have come to that so quickly in so many different instances throughout history. I feel that the intent of this story is twofold in one obvious way, and that's to show that men and women can right the wrongs of their past, even after living through incarceration. But the other one, and the more complicated one, would be how do we deal with a system that perpetuates this environment through poverty, a lack of education, a lack of opportunity, a fractured family nucleus. And, you look at it's so easy for me to get caught up in the process of this film and tell this story with passion and feel good. Because, you know, we're talking about a lot of shit right now that a movie is not going to solve. So I have to cling on the things that feel good. I felt good about the relationship I started with this man telling a story like this, because I know his filmography will reflect those like Lee Daniels that will, as a whole, you'll see that his stories link together a message, a statement as an artist. I feel good about these other actors, specifically Carlton Bird, who played the character Clifton, who was the drug dealer. And yes, he was looked at as the antagonist, but he was a result of the system that needs to be addressed.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So there were a lot of things to focus on to keep my energy up for this performance, as opposed to getting bogged down. You know, I'm an actor first. I'm not like, you know, I don't want to shit on anybody, but I know certain individuals use platforms to preach. I use my artistry, you know, for you to take the lesson from the experience you had from watching my movies. That's why I don't like talking about my politics or even my personal life. I mean, I do, but then I'll make a joke about it, because that's how I think it's best to deflect the attention of it. If you want to look at me, Cuba Gooding Jr., roll the clip. If you want to look at me, the man, you know, you can find me on the ice rink or at the gym or at the house with my kids. But those are two separate things, I think.
So this question is for Jake.
Thank God!
Yeah, really, this was getting awkward.
So, is it fun being up there?
This is painful.
Sitting next to that man talking his ass.
Yeah, he does talk a lot, doesn't he? So,
you, Dad.
When I look at the film, I see that this is a predominantly black cast. This is a black story that's unique to the African American experience. There are other cultures, you know, who live through this type of experience, but some of the mindset that many of the characters would exemplify. And again, I haven't seen the film, but I'm just making it. This is my expectation. I want to know, what is it about your past, your filmmaking, that gave you the confidence to be able to tell this story?
Well, remember, I'm coming at it as a writer. So for me, it's not like I was hired through some system for any, you know, cinematic reasons other than I was passionate about the story. So, and also speaking to everyone in the cast and all of the kids who were in the movie, listen, it's obviously, you know, I'm a 35-year-old white guy. This is not maybe what you were expecting when you got the script. Me too. Yeah, there you go. But the story really, really moved me. I always felt very passionate about it, and it just touched me, you know, just everything about Eugene, and just the idea that this one man, it's not that one man can make a difference. One man did make a difference. I mean, he really, really has. And that was very important to me. But yeah, you know, this question has come up, and all I can say is that it really meant a lot to me to be able to tell the story, and I'm honored I got to do so.
And 10 years, I mean, that's a dedication.
10 years, yeah. 10 years.
Can we get more films out there? I mean, it's good to know about your past, because a lot of kids don't know about their past. A lot of black history is being buried quickly. But instead of like reflecting all the way in the past all the time, could we do something to show them that currently, yes, you may live in the projects, you may not live in the best neighborhood, but if you take care of your neighborhood, if you leave the gangbanging alone, the corner is not the only place that you could go. Between the corner and Central Booking, there's more to this world. Is there any way we could like get more films, more movies out there that says, look, the world is open to you?
You know, everything you just said is 100% what we're trying to say in the movie. From my end, I can say it's and Cuba and I, we were just talking about this. It is so hard to get meaningful movies made. It's so hard. I mean, look, This took us 10 years to get together, and all we got was 15 days. So what we can do is support movies that have a good moral message, and that you like, obviously, that people actually feel are good movies, and just keep supporting them. And that helps the financiers, because remember, where the financiers are thinking, if you're going to see the movie, they'll make them. They get worried about people not seeing the movies, and that's why they only make the comic. It's just down the middle comic book stuff again and again and again. And we say this, but then you look at the box office reports, and those are the movies. There's a reason they're doing it. So all I can say from my end is keep supporting the movies that you really like, and hopefully it'll all add up.
And I will recap, bruh, since you weren't here. But I will say it in 3 words that should be all-encompassing. Self-esteem, hope, and opportunity is what our youth need today. They need it. And the way that we do that in a cinematic way is show them that historically we are a great people. We're not just maids and pushers and gangsters and pro athletes, but we're doctors, Ben Carson. We're military men of greatness that have done great things. That's how we do it, and that's how we make the change. And also, it's one thing to want to do these movies and nobody see them. It's another thing to want to do these movies, make them, and they make $160 million at the box office. Lee Daniels, the Butler. So there is an opportunity and an audience for these movies. The Best Man, and Tyler Perry movies, and all the movies that are geared towards the inner city youth that they can come and see and enjoy and put their money in. And it's interesting because there was a fracture of the studio system where it wasn't just the comic book movies that were being, wide released anymore. It was the independent movies, financed independently, that were competing with those movies. And that's what opened the door to the new voices, to the Steve McQueens, to the Ryan Cooglins, to the Jake Goldbergers. These people are not just telling their story, but they're telling yours. They're telling mine and hers. They don't have any agenda to say he has to be, it's so funny because when I started, and you're right, I do talk too much, but when I started in the business, I went on an audition and my agent would send me the script and you would read the parts and look for them to say African American. Today, I just read the script. Doesn't matter if it's the lead doctor, because I can play him, because I've seen it through the Huxtables and whoever else. So I think that's, there's no answer that's going to everybody go aha and leave here, but I think the process, we're in a wonderful time, people. We are. We're in a wonderful time. We have movies that are touching all, 12 Years a Slave even is a movie that's, if that was done as a miniseries back in the 70s, people would have felt guilty. But now they're feeling reinvigorated because it's our history. I mean, these stories are, there's an audience for this, and then in turn creates healing. So,
don't forget, you guys, the movie opens on January 17th in theaters in New York. What else?
Yeah, in theater, yep.
Queens. And then
Queens.
If it does
Also
well,
on
they'll
VOD,
keep
same
opening in it and spreading it out. So there you have it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.